Hi, I'm Sylvia Darby, co-owner of Foundation Fit. We're a personal training gym in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, and we're just hoping to put out a little bit of information on frequently asked questions in the personal training world. Today's topic can be a topic that can have numerous opinions, depending on who you're talking to, and that is okay. I think it's super important that as a parent, you figure out how to raise your children and how to set up your family for what your values are and for what's going to work for you and your family. And so today, all I'm doing is just shedding light on an area that has worked for my family and an area that we feel it's important that we prioritize time and education and conversation and boundaries. So the two things that I'm going to talk about today are the non-negotiables, or the areas that I have decided I'm not going to fight a battle with. And I decided this early on with my husband, and we follow through with it until we feel it's just not our place to follow through with it anymore, because our children are just of an age where they have enough independence to make those decisions on their own. But we're hoping that we've established enough roots in these areas that they make good decisions. Number one is going to be screen time, and number two is going to be food. Junk food, sugar, just chemical-laden food, addictive food, whatever you might want to call it. And these two areas are important to us because we feel that they affect the emotional, the psychological, the physical being of our children. They creep into every area of their well-being. And at the end of the day, they are areas that we want our children to independently understand, know, and desire to have self-control. Now, they aren't things that happen overnight, and they aren't things that we don't feel we're slipping up on from time to time, and they aren't things that sometimes we feel no matter what we do, our children might go a totally different path than how we're rearing them, and we have to be ready for that. But they are areas that we've decided we're going to do as much work as we can as parents to get them off on the right foot. So the screen time, this is the reason for that. Your children's brains are developing at such a rapid pace, and they are growing at such a rapid pace. And it's an amazing thing. But what fosters that, a healthy brain, and fosters that growth is them using their imagination, their curiosity, their senses, movement of their body, conversations with other human beings. Those are going to foster growth in a positive direction. Study after study after study has been done on the negative repercussions of screen time on those little brains. And it's just, in our family, something that we know has been proven is not healthy. And consciously, we can't continue to feed it to our kids knowing that. Now, is it a hard battle to fight because screen times and screens in general is so prevalent in our society? Absolutely. So that's where it comes down to the conversations and the communication of the why, so that they can internalize that and they can see the reasoning behind our decisions themselves, and hopefully at some point make that decision on their own. Now, we can't just say a no. We have to have other ideas and other things that they can do. So if we feel we don't want screen time that day, or we feel that the screen time has been limited and it's time to stop it, what are our other options for them going to be? We've got to have things in our back pocket that are ideas for them, that are fun, that are engaging, that are entertaining, that they would want to do. We can't just say no and take away, or there's a battle right there. So I would encourage you to educate yourself on the negative effects, positive effects, the whole gamut of information on screen time and your kids. Educate yourself first, and then open up conversation with your kids about this, and then figure out where those boundaries are going to be, communicate those boundaries to your children, and then offer tons of other options of things that you know would stimulate them in a great, fun way. And you might have to do some of those things with them instead of cutting off the screen time and then saying, okay, go do choice B. You need to engage and maybe go along with them. That's going to be my first one. The second one is sugar and unhealthy food. Again, the reason that we prioritize this is the effects that it has on the physical, the emotional, the psychological, everything that has to do with your child. If you know it affects you as an adult, imagine how it's affecting your child. And this is a battle that if you decide not to fight early and you let them have too much slack with, it's going to be harder and harder and harder to reel it in as they get older. So establish those roots when they're young. And again, it comes with education, educating them on what real food is, educating them on what real food does, educating them on the negative effects. Maybe you need to even have an example. Totally used that in my house. The kids have had a birthday party, and then they had an event here, an event there, and it was a total trash food day. And then they come home, and they are just an emotional mess. We will sit down in a very calm manner and talk about, hey, look how you feel right now. Look at how your night has been. Do you feel good? Do you feel good about how you're talking, how you're acting? Do you physically feel good? And they're a mess, and they agree they're a mess. And then you just tie it back to, well, let's look at what we ate today. Do you think that had any impact on it? Ask questions. Don't just point the finger. And then as they start to learn what the negative repercussions are, give them some opportunities to make decisions on their own. If they're deciding a snack or they're deciding something that's maybe not wise, ask them, okay, do you think there is something you could choose better right now than what you have in front of you? How do you think that's going to make you feel at your soccer game? If you have that now, no, we might not have a treat tonight. So there's the if-then fact. Education, communication, but knowing what those boundaries are and standing strong for them is so, so important. And your kids genuinely, they will thank you later. There might be some pain now, but there will be gain later, like there is with so many lessons learned in child rearing. So educate your kids, bring them into the conversation, bring them into some of the decision making, and then be sure that you have alternatives in line to give them for when you have to say no. And then one final thought on that, realize where all you're saying no. You can't say no all the time. So pick your battles. If there is one that's a lot more important than another, maybe let that other one slide a little bit. So for example, if my kids are playing out at night, we usually kind of have a time that we want to reel them in because they've got to have bath, they've got to have dinner, we can't get to bed late, we've got schoolwork to do the next day. But if they're outside and they're playing with friends and everybody's getting along and they're having fun and they ask me for 20 more minutes, is that really something that I need to say no to? I would rather say, no, you can't have 20 more minutes on the screen, but you can have 20 more minutes outside. So pick where you say your no's and make sure that everything is not a no, and that where you have your yeses, they're the ones that really matter.